Good morning, all. Once again, we are with one more topic to discuss some competitive examination questions, model questions, as told in the previous class. Uh, in the previous class, I have taken the first chapter under genetics of second PU, that is principles of inheritance, and of course, in that what you call model questions, last few 4 or 5 questions have left over. So again, I'm not going back to that. Better, I think it's a quite easy questions. You can solve yourself. Irrespective, leave that topic. Come to the second chapter of genetics, that is molecular basis of inheritance. Again, to what you call understand the questions, some basic concept. Again, what do you say, synopsis in brief you have to know regarding molecular basis of inheritance. Of course, in this chapter we are directly getting into a molecule, a biomolecule, which is purely held responsible for transfer of characters from one generation to another generation, what you call inheritance. So we are speaking about that molecule, and by various experiments, we are finally in a position to say that the nucleic acid is the molecule responsible for inheritance of characters. As you know, the nucleic acid, we have two types, DNA and RNA. So we speak about both DNA and RNA. So first of all, DNA, it is a type of nucleic acid uh, found majority in the living organism. Whenever DNA is present as a genetic material, RNA helps in protein synthesis. Where in an organism where there is an absence of DNA, at that time RNA act as a genetic material, like some RNA viruses, what you call retroviruses. Somehow, as introductory concept in the molecular basis of inheritance, we first of all discuss about the DNA, its chemical composition, its structural details, especially double helix model proposed by Watson and Crick. Regarding that model, you may get most of the question, as some of the model question I have taken. We will discuss later. Followed by studying the structure of DNA, we'll move on to the search for genetic material by various experiments like Griffith experiment, Ivory's experiment, Hershey and Chase experiment. So, where we are going to ultimately understand that the nucleic acid or DNA is the genetic material. Of course, regarding that also, there are few questions here. We'll come to that point also. Later on, the DNA, then RNA. RNA is one more nucleic acid where it's in eukaryotes, especially where DNA acting as a genetic material. This RNA helps in protein synthesis. And of course, we have different types of RNA like mRNA, tRNA, rRNA, having their specific functions that also we come across. Then, what do you call the RNA that involves in protein synthesis, irrespective of the tRNA, rRNA, or mRNA, their main role is to synthesize proteins. That we discuss. Again, in DNA, we are going to study replication of DNA, how DNA replicate itself. That means it produces its replica or duplicate copy. That mechanism is very important. So many questions might ask on that basis. Followed by replication of DNA, we are going to study a experimental evidence for the replication of DNA as stated by Stahl and Messelson. DNA shows semi-conservative method of replication. For that, they have given experimental evidence that also we are going to study by using radioactive isotopes. There are some questions regarding that also. Then, after replication of DNA, we'll move on the what you call one more concept, transcription, that is synthesis of RNA from DNA. Irrespective, all RNAs are produced or synthesized by DNA. And that phenomena is called transcription. We mainly speak about synthesis of mRNA as a messenger RNA, carrying a particular message from the DNA for the particular protein synthesis. And that protein synthesis from transcribed mRNA we call translation. So replication, transcription, translation. These are some very important mechanisms happening in our cells, molecular level, for synthesis of proteins. Then after the translation, there are post-translation mechanism in case of eukaryote especially, preparing some errors, changes happens during translation, and that what we call post-translation and post-transcription mechanism, both are there. Regarding that also there are some questions. Then finally, the mRNA overall, what you call the mechanism followed a concept of genetic codes. How information from DNA is carried by mRNA, in the sense it is through by means of genetic code we can understand. And we are going to study the genetic codes. What are the genetic codes, how they are made up of, what they are made up of, how they code for amino acids during translation. Regarding that also there are one or two questions. Then after studying overall mechanism of genetic code, we have a concept called lac operon concept, because the transcription may occur in a DNA continuously, or it occurs when it is required. What you call skip genes we call. So there are various examples for that, but one experimental explanation has given that when a gene wants to be expressed itself to synthesize its mRNA for protein synthesis, there is a what you call a lac operon concept, where lactose metabolism we took as an example for the synthesis of some enzyme which are nothing but proteins. After lac operon concept, we are going to discuss DNA fingerprinting, then the human genome project. That also covers the molecular basis of inheritance. Hopefully, in this class, I just cover up to RNA transcription and translation, because these are the chapters having maximum weightage in your CET exams. If you just take a blueprint of marks rewarded or marks covered chapter wise from the second PU, these are the chapters having maximum questions in appears to be in your CET. If I am not wrong, 4 questions or 4-mark questions from principles of inheritance and 5-mark questions from molecular basis of inheritance. Overall 9 questions. So give more time preparation for these chapters, because there is a more weightage. So I'm not going to waste more time on just discussing the synapses, because you have already studied the theoretical part in detail in your various means, either by online classes or self-studies, or even attending some classes in the colleges when there is no lockdown. So therefore, I am directly moving on to the discussion of the some model questions as I have shared on the screen. Let us start. The first question: nucleotide differ from nucleoside. So this is the question on the chemical composition of DNA. As a structure of DNA we'll discuss. The DNA basically made up of 3 components. One is a sugar, another is a nitrogen base, then a phosphate group. So in case of sugar, it is a pentose sugar. As you know, the sugars, especially monosaccharides, have been classified based on the number of carbon, like diosers, triosers, tetrosers, pentosers, hexosers, like that. In the sense, 2 carbon diosers, 3 triosers. So the sugar present in nucleic acid, that is a pentose sugar. In the sense, it has 5 carbons. Now again, when you come to the nucleic acid, it is either DNA or RNA. So the ribose sugar, the pentose sugar, the pentose sugar present in DNA is deoxyribose. Structurally C5H10O4, that is, as a standard formula, if you consider, it should be C5H10O5. But here in deoxy, the name itself designate that there is a absence of oxygen. As such, C5H10O5 is in DNA, that is deoxyribose, where RNA it is C5H10O5 ribose sugar. Now, irrespective, a sugar is going to be react with, first of all, a nitrogen base. The reaction among these 3 components is in this manner that DNA, ribose sugar or sugar, pentose sugar react with the nitrogen base. Again, when you come to the nitrogen base, we have 4 nitrogen bases categorized into 2 groups, purines and pyrimidines. Purines, which are what you call the single ring cyclic compounds having nitrogen, rich in nitrogen, where pyrimidines are double ring cyclic compounds. So purines are adenine and guanine, has been named adenine and guanine, A and G we designate, where pyrimidines are thymine and cytosine. In case of RNA, thymine is replaced by uracil. So for DNA, it is AGTC, adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. Where in case of RNA, nitrogen bases are adenine, guanine, uracil, and cytosine. So T is replaced by U. That's the difference. Then the sugar reacts with any of these nitrogen base to form a structure called nucleoside. Now the question is, nucleotide differ from nucleoside. So we obtain nucleotides from nucleosides. So nucleosides are the monomer for the synthesis of nucleotides. So here sugar plus phosphorus is sugar plus nitrogen base is nucleoside. When to this nucleoside phosphorus attach, or when they react with phosphorus and make a new compound called nucleotide. So nucleotide contain all the 3 components: sugar, nitrogen base, phosphorus, where nucleoside contains only sugar and nitrogen base. So I think you are in a position to make the answer from the option. Having phosphate, lacking nitrogen base, having sugar, lacking phosphates. So nucleotide differ from nucleoside in having the phosphate is the answer, because we find presence of phosphorus or phosphate in the nucleotide, where we don't find that in the nucleoside. So that's the answer. Now, the bond between the following is a stress bond. When these components of DNA, sugar, nitrogen base, and phosphorus, when they react with each other, they make specific bonding. When sugar react with the phosphate, the bond between the following is estrous bond. They have already mentioned that during these reactions, there is a formation of ester bond between two components of the nucleic acid. You have to identify which those two components. Is it sugar or phosphorus? Is it sugar or nitrogen base? Like that. So let us speak one by one. Of course, the estrous bond form is between the sugar and phosphorus. So phosphorus actually gives the acidic nature to the nucleic acid. So when sugar hydroxyl group react with the phosphorus or phosphate group, it ultimately form estrous bond. So that is the answer. The estrous bond formed between the sugar and phosphate of the nucleic acid. Where the bond formed between sugar and nitrogen base is what you call a glycosidic bond. Whereas a bond formed between nitrogen base and phosphate, we don't find any such bonding between nitrogen base and phosphate. There is no bonding between phosphate and nitrogen bases. Okay. So nitrogen bases bond form between sugar. Phosphorus also make bond between sugar. Nitrogen base and phosphate never make bonding with each other. So that's not at all present. Nucleotides of opposite strand. So as you know, DNA is a double-stranded molecule. One side, one strand and another strand, they are found held together. They are not free, they are found held together. That we are clearly understand by studying the Watson and Crick double helix model of DNA, where we clearly make a point that the two strands are held together by nitrogen bases of each strand through weak hydrogen bonds. So the nucleotides of opposite strands are held together by nitrogen bases through weak hydrogen bonds. So the bond formed between nucleotides of opposite strands is weak hydrogen bonds. So question may change. Keeping the same option, at that time the answer also is going to be changed. For instance, the bond between the following is a weak hydrogen bond. Instead of ester bond, we are going to represent as a weak hydrogen bond. At that time, answer is the nucleotides of opposite strands. And of course, the bond between the following is glycosidic bond. At that time, the answer is sugar and nitrogen bases. Okay. So, this is about the clarification for the question number 2 regarding bonding of different components to one another, ultimately resulting the formation of nucleotide. Nucleotide join one another by diphosphoestrous bond. One nucleotide and another nucleotide of a polynucleotide strand, they bonded to one another by diphosphoestrous bond. Okay, making a long polynucleotide chain. So let us move on. That long polynucleotide chain itself we call nucleic acid. If it is single stranded, it is RNA. If it is double stranded, it is DNA. In that also, if it is single stranded but having deoxyribose, it is called single stranded DNA. Having deoxyribose but two strands held together, it is called double stranded dsDNA, ssDNA. Having ribose sugar in the single stranded, and it is always single stranded, that is RNA. Okay, question number 3. The nitrogen bases common to the DNA and RNA are. So here, of course, we thought about that in just synapses. I told the nitrogen bases AGTC in case of DNA, AGUC in case of RNA. Now they are asking which are the common nitrogen bases present both in DNA and RNA. Let us have a look on option A, G and U. This is only to RNA because in RNA uracil is present along with adenine and guanine. So this is applicable only to RNA because in DNA we don't find uracil. So option A is not the answer. Option B, AG and T, adenine, guanine, and thymine. And of course, this is applicable only to DNA because DNA contains thymine along with adenine and guanine. Now, A and C, we find the presence of adenine, guanine, and cytosine common in the both DNA and RNA. Okay, but such option has not given. But under that, they have just mentioned A and C. Of course, in DNA also, yes, in DNA also we find presence of adenine, and in RNA also we find adenine. Similarly, we find cytosine in both DNA and RNA. As such, concern to this question and option, the option C is the right answer. Where D, A, T and U. So this is not applicable to either DNA or RNA because thymine and uracil both has given. We don't find both present in any one nucleic acid, that is DNA or RNA. Either thymine is present, uracil is absent in DNA, uracil is present, thymine is absent in RNA. So D is not at all the composition, proper nitrogen bases composition in any of the nucleic acid. Okay, so might you understand the third question on the basis presence or absence of nitrogen bases? And one common question what we frequently observed in the previous competitive exams, different competitive exams are that name the nitrogen base that present in DNA and absent in RNA, or which nitrogen base is present in DNA and absent in RNA. At that time, they simply mention adenine option A, guanine option B, cytosine option C, thymine option D. So present in DNA, absent in RNA in the sense thymine. Okay, because AGC is common for DNA and RNA. Similarly, the same question may ask, name the nitrogen base present in RNA, absent in DNA. At that time, instead of thymine, they may represent uracil, or they may give thymine also and uracil also. But keeping on the question in mind, present in RNA, absent in DNA in the sense, uracil is present in RNA, absent in DNA. That you should make out. So different patterns of questions may arise on the same concept. I can't keep on discussing the all questions due to time factor. Okay. Question number 4. DNA is wrapped around the histone octamer to form. Now this is one more concept, packaging of DNA. A 2.2 meter of DNA, a single cell of human, if you take in consideration, it has 2.2 meter of DNA. Imagine how such a huge DNA is found accommodated in a very small, what you call millimeter, or even in some nanometer size of nucleic acid. Sorry, nucleus. My mistake. How such a huge DNA, meters of DNA, found accommodated in a small nucleus in a cell? For that question, the clarification is the packaging of DNA. That DNA is found packed very compactly in such a way that it can accommodate in a small nucleus. So that concept we study as the DNA is found covered by a protein. Okay, and that protein is octamer protein made up of 8 unit called histone protein, that is designated as H1, H2, H3 and H4, that is present in pairs, 2H1, 2H2, 2H3, 2H4. So these what you call 8 octamer protein to which DNA is found wrapped. Okay, so as such, it gives a highly coiled structure, what we also call solenoid structure of DNA, that make DNA very compact. As histone is a negatively charged protein, and sorry, my mistake. The histone is a positively charged protein and DNA is a negatively charged molecule. As we know, the bonding, positive and negative, they attract each other very firmly. So DNA is found, a negatively charged DNA is found wrapped around a positively charged protein, making a firm, rigid, compact, coiled structure. And that structure is the answer here. and that's what the basis behind this question. The DNA is wrapped around the histone aptamer to form a structure. So nuclein, if you take the option 1, nuclein, so this is one of the name for the nucleus itself, or the nucleic acid, which was given by Altman, that is during the beginning discovery of nucleic acid. The person Altman was named nuclein, but it was discovered by Frederick Mischer. However, this is one of the name for the nucleic acid coined by Altman, and this is not the structure for the DNA wrapped around the histone. It's overall the whole nucleic acid. So one of the beginning name given to the nucleic acid. So nucleol, here is the some typing error. It's not nucleus, it is nucleolus. L is missing. Okay, make it correction. So nucleolus, it is okay. One more structure mainly made up of protein and RNA, found inside the nucleus as a darkly stained spherical structure responsible for synthesizing the ribosomes. And it is also not made up of course it is made up of protein, and but not DNA, it is RNA, and that too not wrapped to each other. Compositionally it is protein and RNA, not DNA and protein. That too not a aptamer histone protein. So nucleosome, this is the answer. The structure which we obtain when a negatively charged DNA wrapped around a positively charged aptamer histone protein, with that bead-like structure we call nucleosome. As such, a string of beads we obtain when we observe the DNA in a chromosomes or in a nucleus. Okay. So nucleus, its overall structure within which we find the nucleosomes. So this is about the question number 4. It's a direct question, as DNA found wrapped around histone aptamer, and that structure is called nucleosome. Okay. The next, a sugar phosphate chain in DNA act as, a sugar phosphate chain in DNA act as. So as just we came to know that DNA is made up of 3 components: sugar, phosphorus, and nitrogen base. According to the double helix model of DNA by Watson and Crick, the sugar phosphate chain in DNA act as a backbone of the DNA. To make the DNA a rigid structure, it acts as a backbone. Like for animals, the backbone as a main structure making the body rigid or in a particular framework. Similarly, the sugar phosphate act as a backbone in DNA structure. So that's the thing. There is no other discussion like steps axis. We don't find such words in structure of DNA. Of course, polynucleotide strand, it's overall whole nucleic acid or DNA we termed in another form called polynucleotide strand. That is, DNA is made up of many nucleotides, hence name polynucleotide. So the next question, the 2 new polynucleotide chain in DNA are, again, DNA mainly majoritarily consisting of 2 strands, has double stranded DNA, dsDNA. And these 2 strands they are found held together, that we already thought, through weak hydrogen bonds at nitrogen bases, by nitrogen bases. Now when you study the structure of DNA, again, these details also given by Watson and Crick, that these 2 strands are, first of all, they run in an opposite direction. What you call anti-parallel in direction, first point. The 2 strands are anti-parallel in direction. Now you may get the question, what is that anti-parallel? Each DNA strand is marked by ends, what you call 3 prime and 5 prime. If one end is marked as 3 prime, another end is marked as 5 prime. As so, 3 prime is the one end, as 5 prime is the another end. Similarly, the another strand 5 prime and 3 prime. So one start with the 3 prime, another start with the 5 prime, in the sense in opposite direction. Hence, we called it as anti-parallel. Okay, one point. The two polynucleotide chain in DNA are. So under option A, complementary and parallel. So parallel they have mentioned, that make it wrong. Okay, so option 1 will be skipped. B, complementary and anti-parallel. So that we can keep it in mind. Let us consider parallel, option C, parallel and non-complementary. First of all, they are not parallel, they are anti-parallel and non-complementary. And that is also wrong. They are complementary to each other. Now I'll come to that point. What is complementary? Okay. Option D, anti-parallel. Of course, they are anti-parallel, but they are not non-complementary. They are complementary and anti-parallel. So option B is the right answer. So anti-parallel, you have understood that two strands run in opposite direction, one from 3 prime to 5 prime, whereas another run from 5 prime to 3 prime as mentioned in the board. And then come to the complementary base rule, that is purines always pairs with pyrimidines. Purines always pairs with pyrimidines. This is what we call complementary base pairing. Under that also, purines are of two types, A, G, where pyrimidines are of two types, T, C. Okay. Adenine always pairs with thymine. This is complementary. Adenine never pairs with cytosine, or adenine never pairs with guanine. First thing, purine never pairs with purine. Pyrimidines never pairs with pyrimidine. Complementary means purines always pairs with pyrimidines. Under that also, adenine of purine always pairs with thymine of pyrimidine, not with the cytosine of pyrimidine. Hope you understand. Okay. The pairing is always with A and T, G with C. Even you can say vice versa, T with A, C with G, like that. Okay, but the pairing is always fixed, A with T, G with C. Understand? That too, A pairs with T by 2 weak hydrogen bonds and G pairs with C by 3 weak hydrogen bonds. So these are all vowel things, what we call complementary nitrogen base pairing rules, given by a person called Chargaff. Okay, hence it is also called Chargaff base equivalence rule. But particularly complementary nitrogen base pairing was explained by Watson and Crick. On that principle, one more person by Chargaff has given some extra information regarding the percentage of purines and pyrimidines, percentage of adenine with thymine, all this concept called Chargaff base equivalence rule. As per that, number of purine is equal to number of pyrimidine in a given DNA. That is the statement, that is the rule by Chargaff and the principles of complementary nitrogen base pairing. But this explanation of pairing of nitrogen bases, pairing of purines with pyrimidine, everything was explained by Watson and Crick itself. So the two polynucleotide chains of DNA, they are held together, of course, by nitrogen bases. And these nitrogen bases are complementary to each other. That you need to understand this complementary meaning, that purine pairs with pyrimidine. Under the purines, adenine always pairs with pyrimidine thymine by 2 weak hydrogen bond. Under purine, guanine always pairs with the pyrimidine cytosine by 3-week hydrogen bonds. That called complementary nitrogen base pairing. So hope you clear with the explanation and the answer for the question. The two polynucleotide chain in DNA are complementary and anti-parallel as a complete sentence. Move on. The next question. In a DNA, percentage of thymine is 20%. Then what will be the percentage of guanine? One of the most asked question, I think, most important one, might be the percentage changes, might be the type of nitrogen base given is changed. For example, here thymine is given. Instead of that, they make ask adenine, guanine, or cytosine, any of these. Okay. Now come to the point, Chargaff base equivalence rule. Okay. So on the complementary nitrogen base pairing, later on, Chargaff has given a rule called Chargaff base equivalence rule. So according to this rule, the number of purine is equal to the number of pyrimidine in a given DNA. Whatever the DNA has given, in that number of purine is equal to number of pyrimidine. And that concept rule, this question is arised. Let us have a look on. In a DNA, percentage of thymine is 20%. So they have given the percentage of thymine. What will the percentage of guanine? So thymine is a pyrimidine, guanine is a purine. Now there is no bonding between thymine and guanine. So you have to analyze the question, make it very clear. AGTC. DNA nitrogen bases. As you know, AG is equal to TC. Now one they have mentioned, what they have given, thymine is 20%. Is it or not? So thymine is 20%. Thymine is always pairs with adenine, isn't or not? If thymine are 20, no doubt adenine are also 20, because thymine is always pairs with adenine, as number of thymine is equal to number of adenine. So this is also make 20%. So 20% adenine in 20% thymine, that is equal to makes 40%. Out of 100% of DNA given, 40% makes thymine and adenine itself, as they have given hint to calculate thymine is 20%. Hope you are understanding. Rest 60% are G and C. No, under that half 30% is G and 30% is C. Hope you got the answer. The guanine is 30%. Okay. Suppose if they have given in a DNA percentage of guanine is 30%, then what will be the percentage of adenine, like that? So same calculation. At that time, if guanine is 30, guanine is pairs with cytosine, that may also 30. 30 plus 30, 60% is over. Rest is 40%. Under that, adenine will be the 20%. Hope you are understanding the things by this explanation. Okay, move on. Now, Chargaff rule is applicable to. We just thought about Chargaff rule. What is that state, or that rule state that in a given DNA molecule, number of purines are is equal to number of pyrimidines. Okay. Now, Chargaff rule is applicable to single-stranded RNA. For your kind information, Chargaff rule is stated based on the complementary nitrogen base pairing. And complementary nitrogen base pairing is observed in double-stranded DNA only, even not in a single-stranded DNA. So it is applicable to double-stranded DNA, as they are found held together through complementary nitrogen bases. Therefore, Chargaff rule is applicable to double-strand first of all, either DNA or RNA. So first option, single-stranded RNA. So either single-stranded DNA or RNA, it is not applicable. So option A is wrong. Single-stranded DNA and RNA, I just told, it's wrong. Double-stranded DNA, of course, that's the right answer. Double-stranded DNA and RNA. Here, we don't have double-stranded RNA in nature. Naturally, we don't find double-stranded RNAs. Though some the RNAs shows helication, coil itself in such a way that it appears to be double-stranded. At that time, there is a possibility that the two nitrogen bases, what do you call, placing opposite to each other shows complementary. But bonding, such things we don't find clearly. So majoritarily and directly speaking, it is to the double-stranded DNA, not to the double-stranded DNA and RNA, because in nature we don't find double-stranded RNAs. Though it acts as a genetic material, at that time also it is present as a single-stranded RNAs. So C is the nearmost accurate answer. That is for double-stranded DNA. Next, move on. One more important and most asked question, previous asked questions. The sequence of nitrogen base in a particular region of the non-coding strand of DNA. Now, you have to understand this. There are two DNAs, two strand of DNA. One is considered, this is one strand and this is another strand. Now 3' to 5', 5' to 3' as anti-parallel in position. The question is the sequence of nitrogen bases in a particular region of non-coding strand of DNA. So this is the concept related to the DNA, transcription. Synthesis of mRNA from DNA is called transcription. At that time, one of the strand of DNA act as template, actually on which the synthesis of synthesis of RNA takes place. Or the same can called as non-coding strand. So as given in the question, non-coding strand. This is also called or antisense strand. The three synonymous name for the same strand. Basically, we call it as template when one of the DNA strand is performing transcription, and that strand is called template. If both strands are involved in some mechanism, that time if both is called as template. Like in case of DNA replication, both strands are involved, at that time two templates. But in case of transcription, synthesis of RNA, only one strand is involved, or on only one strand the mechanism is going on, and that is act as a template. So consider this is the template, where opposite strand to the template is called coding strand, are also called sense strand. Okay. Now, this is non-coding strand because the nitrogen bases present here is not at all the code for protein synthesis. Hence, they are called non-coding. So, the actual codes that is required for a protein synthesis are present in the opposite strand, because hence it is called coding strand. If RNA synthesis takes place in this coding strand, ultimately the codes that are formed, copied to the RNA is going to be opposite as per complementary nitrogen base pairing. Therefore, the information that goes is the opposite information. So that is not happening, that is not to be happen, as it may produce error proteins. So therefore, the codes are present in the coding strand or sense strand. The same code we required in RNA, that is in mRNA. Okay, as it should not synthesize mRNA on the coding strand, because if it is do so, it obtain complementary opposite nitrogen bases. That is not the codes. So codes are whatever the present here are the codes, and that same codes we required. So if we require the same codes, mRNA has to be synthesized on the template or anti-coding strand, because here the codes are opposite to the coding strand. When the mRNA synthesize according to complementary nitrogen base pairing, ultimately we'll get the same codes that are presenting in the coding strand. For instance, come to the question, that is a DNA molecule was found to be having what you call, especially in they are saying non-coding strand of DNA molecule was found to be C A, what is that, uh, G T T T T, yes, A T followed by C G C. So this is the code on template. Okay, a non-coding strand. Continue the question. What would be the sequence of nitrogen bases in the mRNA? As just I told, mRNA synthesis takes place on the template strand. So what would be the sequence of nitrogen bases on mRNA that is synthesized by the corresponding region of the coding strand in DNA? Here is the trick. Here they have made the question, what you call, change or difficult. Here you have to think up to the, that is, what would be the sequence of nitrogen bases in mRNA that is synthesized by the corresponding region of the coding strand. Usually it won't happen. Naturally, such things won't happen, that mRNA synthesize in a opposite strand, that is opposite to the template is coding strand. Just to make you examine your preparation, your thinking, your knowledge, this question has been given. Basically, mRNA synthesize here, okay, but they are asking what is the mRNA nitrogen base sequence synthesize on the coding strand. Okay, so if you observe the question, make yourself clear the nitrogen sequence of the template strand they have given, and naturally the mRNA synthesis on the template as according to complementary opposite one, that is C G T A with T, T with A, G C A T A G C G. This is what the mRNA, if it is all synthesized on template. Of course, this option is also given. I think the option, what you call, my mistake. Whenever there is a T, it is replaced by U. So the option one, A, option A, if you observe, it is similarly, that is GUAC, AAAU, A, G, C, G. This is natural things, but in question they have given some trick. What would be the sequence of nitrogen bases in the mRNA that is synthesized by the corresponding region of coding strand? They're asking now what is the sequence of mRNA synthesized here, not here. Okay, they're not asking about this mRNA. Okay, naturally mRNA synthesized here, but they have given some unnatural condition that if mRNA synthesis on coding strand, that is the hint here, coding strand of DNA, what do you think the nitrogen bases? I just told the nitrogen base sequence of coding strand is opposite to the nitrogen base sequence of template strand. Okay. If mRNA synthesis on this almost same, except you know the thing, in mRNA T is replaced with uracil. So nitrogen base of template itself is the nitrogen base of mRNA synthesized on the coding strand. So sequence remains same, only T is replaced with U. Hope you got the answer, the option that is C. Okay. C GTACAA, that is not the what you call sequence of nitrogen bases. on the corresponding region. C, of course, A, same. T, hence it is an mRNA. It is replaced with uh, U. Okay. So option C is the right answer here. As a just very simple concept, the nitrogen basis of sense strand is opposite to the nitrogen basis of template strand. Okay. If sense strand synthesizes RNA and that nitrogen base sequence is similar to template, except thymine is replaced by uracil. So they have given template nitrogen sequence and they are asking you what is the nitrogen sequence of mRNA synthesized on coding strand. So that make very easy. Same sequence remains, only T is replaced with U as it is RNA. Hope you are clear with that. Such kind of question we are going to ask you frequently. Now, what may be the chances of changing the question? That is the sequence of nitrogen, a direct question without any dilemma, without any confusion. A direct question is a sequence of nitrogen bases in a particular region of non-coding DNA molecule is found to be CATG, TTA, TCG like that. What could be the sequence of nitrogen bases in the mRNA transcribed on that DNA? Directly they are asking to what is the sequence of transcribed sequence of mRNA transcribed from the DNA. Whenever that question is like that, it's a direct question. The transcribed mRNA sequence is opposite to the non-coding strand. At that time, the option will be the A is the answer. Okay, so that's a direct question. Now here they have make it some twist in the question. Instead of asking directly the transcribed mRNA nitrogen bases sequence, they're asking you what is the nitrogen base sequence if that mRNA is transcribed from a coding strand. At that time, you have to keep this concept principle in mind. Hope you understood this question. Very important, expecting repeating questions. The chances of such questions may arise with some slight changes. So keep practicing. Okay. Now next question. What is the common point of similarity between DNA and RNA? So a lot of things we have studied between DNA and RNA with respect to the previous questions, and even in you have theoretical knowledge. So similar things that is found DNA and RNA, both are double stranded. No, DNA is double stranded or single stranded. RNA is always single stranded. So keep it in mind, both are not double stranded because RNA is always single stranded. Both have identical sugar molecules. Of course, keeping in mind pentose sugar, both are identical, but particular sugar, if you come to the point, it is deoxy, that is C5H10O4, where RNA is ribose sugar, that is C5H10O5. So that makes the difference in the sugar. So it is also not similar. Both have identical pyrimidine bases. No, pyrimidine in case of DNA is T and C, thymine and cytosine, where in case of RNA it is uracil and cytosine. That is also not similar. C, the option D, both are polymers of nucleotide. Of course, irrespective whether it is a deoxyribose or ribose, irrespective whether it is a thymine or uracil, the structure compound formed by combining sugar, nitrogen base and phosphorus is called nucleotide, and all they are made up of joining by many nucleotides, that is polymer. Single is monomer. Many such nucleotides bond one another by phosphodiesterase bond, making a long chain of either DNA or RNA. So that is the similar, both are polynucleotide strands. Okay, next question. Experimental material for the study of DNA replication has been used. That is the continuation. You have to complete the sentence. So experimental material for the study of DNA replication has been. So DNA replication was frequently studied by using a bacteria. Of course, here pneumococcus is a bacteria, Escherichia coli is a bacteria. So first hint, the replication of DNA was studied in simple organism you called bacteria. Why bacteria? This bacteria shows a what you call divide very rapidly. As you know, typically they start dividing within 20 minutes. Within 20 minutes, one bacteria become two. As whenever they divide, they also divide their DNA. So to study the DNA replication, the best material and the to get the faster result, the bacteria has been used. Now, which bacteria used? That's the important. Whereas remaining two, Neurospora crassa and Drosophila melanogaster. Neurospora crassa is a fungi, belongs to Ascomycetes, and it is one of the fungi that is used in the research of genetic studies, as they have shorter lifespan. Even this fungi is also have shorter lifespan. There are a lot of mutagens, that is, they shows frequent mutations in their genetic material. Keeping on that mind, this fungi is frequently used in genetic studies, but not for the replication. Okay. Drosophila melanogaster, as you know, commonly called fruit fly, and this is also used in the field of genetics to study some inheritance pattern. Even they are shows many variants, mutants, species. So, first hint for the DNA replication, the material used is the bacteria. The cells used are bacteria. Now the bacteria, come to the point. Pneumococcus is also a bacteria. Escherichia coli is also bacteria. Pneumococci bacteria, we basically is not the bacteria used for the study, as they are pathogenic. They known to cause pneumonia as a disease. As keeping in that mind, they are not used. As E. coli bacteria, commonly available, non-pathogenic, easily available, and quite larger in size bacteria. So these are the bacteria used to study the DNA replication experiments. Okay. Next, the DNA that was extracted from the first generation E. coli in the Michelson and Stahl experiment had. Now we are to the concept DNA replication from the previous two questions itself. So Stahl and Michelson has performed the experimentation on E. coli for DNA replication and finally conclude that DNA replication is a semi-conservative method of replication. That means when a new DNA form from a parental DNA in the daughter DNA, so parental is the old first generation parental generation DNA. The next DNA that is formed in the daughter cells is the first generation DNA. So that is Stahl and Michelson, they have through their experiment given conclusion that the two DNAs that are formed, and that is the new DNA or daughter DNA that is formed, it has half original DNA that is from the parent and remaining half is newly synthesized. That's why it is called semi-conservative. Only half of the parental DNA remains. Remaining half DNA is newly synthesized. And of course, that concept we make very clear during the study of DNA replication. But for that semi-conservative method, Stahl and Michelson has given experimental evidence by using the radio isotopes of nitrogen, that is N14 and N15, which is having an extra neutron. For example, N14 to an N15, if you compare, N15 has a one extra neutron that make it heavy in weight. So N14 is called light DNA, N15 is called heavy DNA, because nitrogen, as you know, is one of the component of nucleic acid. To make synthesize DNA, there is a need of uh, nitrogen bases having nitrogen. So they have used N14 and N15 nitrogen bases. So first they have cultured a E. coli bacteria in N14 as a parental generation. Now then they have transferred that N14 bacteria having in their DNA to the next media containing N15. Now first parental, all they have light DNA. To make you clear, so here considered this is a DNA up to N14 and N14. Both the strands having N14 as the nitrogen base. This is what we call light DNA. Light DNA. As compared to the N15, they are lighter in weight. When they start replicating, the two strands that are held together, they get separate from each other. So when you study the concept of DNA replication, you ultimately come to this point that before DNA replication, the two strands, they are separate. Unwinding of DNA takes place. On these two strands, the new strands have been synthesized. Hence, they are being transferred to a media containing N15 now. So first we have culture all the bacteria in N14 so that the bacteria contain N14 as the component in their nucleic acid, making or representing that as a light DNA. Now this is the parental generation, and this is what we call the first generation is now going to be produced. This is parental. Okay. Now we have transferred that N14 into N15. Basically, the Stalin Michelson done these things. When they have transferred the N14 light DNA bacteria into a media containing N15, a heavy nitrogen. Now, by using that nitrogen, they have synthesized a new strands according to complementary nitrogen-based pairings. The new strands have been formed. So one is N14, another is N15. Here is also N15 and N14. So two daughter DNA we obtain as a F1 generation, first generation. Now the question is, the DNA that was extracted from the first generation of E. coli in the Stalin Michelson having heavy density. If both the DNA is containing N15 only, that time it is called heavy density. As according to the semi-conservative method, only half of the parental DNA, you can look at this. From that parent, two strands have been separate and one strand for one daughter, another strand for another daughter DNA. So only half DNA will be conserved, that is semi-conserved. Remaining half is newly synthesized. And how you can make sure that that is newly synthesized? Because when we again took this nitrogen sequence and we perform centrifugation or centrifuge technique is applied, they found to be settled at different position according to their density. So they settled as a low density, they settled at a medium density. If both contain N15, they settled at the bottom as a heavy DNA. So in the first generation, we never find that both are heavy density DNAs. Okay. There is a combination of both light and heavy DNA. What do you call hybrid DNA? If both are N14, light. If both are N15, heavy. If one strand is N14, another strand is N15, at that time, it is called hybrid density DNA. Hope you got the answer. So the first generation will have not the heavy, not the light, it is hybrid. So option B is the answer, both light and hybrid density. No, it's all the daughter cells that are formed, they are of just hybrid density. If we continue for one more generation in the same N15, at that time, okay, let us do this work. 4 strands we obtain here. So on that, a new strands have been formed. So a white chalk used represent the new strands. See, this is hybrid. So this is our heavy N15, 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 N15. This is N14, N15. Here is also N14 and N15. So two hybrid DNAs. In two daughter cell, you will find hybrid DNAs. In two daughter cell, you will find heavy DNAs. For next generation, you will find like this. Okay, that is hybrid in two data sets, both hybrid and heavy. But such options has not given both light and hybrid. If you have to get this answer, the in next generation the E. coli cells has been transferred to again the N14 media. At that time chances are the obtaining light and hybrid density. So possibility in the question, they may change that for first to second generation. They may keep on moving with changing the media. At that time, the better way, instead of calculating in the mind, do the work, take out the given, represent in the form of DNAs, mention what is the DNA has given, whether hybrid, light or heavy, whatever the condition they have given, then transfer that into a particular medias as asked in the question, and make the bond separation of two strands, create new bonds, create new strands as per the media, whether it is N14 or N15. Ultimately, you'll get daughter cells for first and second generation, and there you can make out your answer very clear. So this is Stalin-Michelson experiment condition, the experiment question as obtaining of light, heavy density DNAs and their experiments to justify the concept semi-conservative method of DNA replication. Okay, next question. X-ray diffraction study was on DNA was carried out by, of course, this is the experiment was done by Wilkin and Franklin. That is the direct question. So X-ray diffraction method of study of DNA was carried out by Wilkin and Franklin. After that, Watson and Crick used their X-ray diffraction method to what do you call propose the double stranded DNA molecule, what do you call double helix model of DNA. So they have used X-ray diffraction information studies done by Wilkin and Franklin to propose the double helix model of DNA, that is Watson and Crick. Of course, Chargaff, you know, he is not involved in explaining the this technique. He is involved in proposing a rule called Chargaff-based equivalence rule. Hershey and Chase experiment, of course, they have the scientist or molecular biologist or biochemist who involved in explaining giving an experimental evidence to justify the transforming principle. Griffith has given transforming principle experiment, and to conclude that DNA is a transforming principle or DNA is the genetic material, Hershey and Chase experiment came into point as they use bacteriophages, viruses, again where they have cultured these viruses in radioactive phosphorus and radioactive sulfur to make protein and nucleic acid separately, and that experiment we are familiar, and ultimately they come to the point that the radioactivity was found to be the viruses infected to the E. coli cultured in radioactive phosphorus. That shows the nucleic acid is the genetic or transforming principle. Okay, so Hershey and Chase, they have given an experiment for biochemical analysis of transforming principle to clearly justify that nucleic acid is the transforming principle. Next, duplication of DNA is termed. So next concept, replication of DNA or duplication of DNA, both are same. So duplication of DNA is termed as replication. But the option here, translation, the process of synthesis of protein by decoding mRNA. So mRNA has already been formed, and the message present in mRNA as genetic codes, that code is considered for assembling particular amino acids by ribosomes to make a protein. That overall phenomena we call translation. It's not the duplication of or duplication of DNA. So synthesis of protein is called translation in simple means. Transcription, synthesis of mRNA from DNA is the transcription. Transduction, it's one of the phenomena of transforming the genetic material to the bacterial cell or to the host cell using viruses. Whenever we use virus to transfer the genetic material through virus into the host cell, at that time the condition is called transduction. So DNA replication or DNA duplication, none of the both are the same things. So the duplication of DNA is termed as DNA replication. Replication is, now they are asking about replication. What happens in replication? You obtain DNA from DNA. That is, DNA gives DNA. DNA gives RNA. RNA gives DNA. DNA gives protein. Again, so replication means DNA to DNA. From one DNA, we will get another copy of DNA, another DNA. So that is the answer. DNA to RNA, of course, it is transcription. RNA to DNA, it is called reverse transcription. That happens viral particles. They have to convert their viral RNA into DNA. So conversion of or synthesis of RNA from DNA, we called it as ಏನೋ ಬಂತು ನೋಡಿ ಬ್ರೋ ಬಂತು ಬನ್ನಿ ಒಂದು 10 minutes ಕನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ okay. Okay, the next question, due to some network issue, unable to continue the task. Okay, let us now continue. So DNA synthesis takes place during, so here DNA synthesis takes place during interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase. Now when you come to the basic things, when do you find DNA replication or DNA duplication? It takes place during I phase of DNA. As you know, the cell cycle. Cell cycle made up of I phase, M phase. During I phase, there is a synthesis of DNA. Under that, there are three subphases again. What you call G1, S, G2 phase. So during S phase, that is synthetic phase, the DNA synthesis of takes place. And S is the one of the substage of interphase. So DNA synthesis takes place during interphase. So prophase, metaphase, anaphase, they are the M phase of the life cycle, where there is no synthesis, such things takes place. There's simply division of nuclear chromosomes takes place. That's it. Depending upon either whether it is mitosis or meiosis. Okay. The Taylor demonstrate semi-conservative chromosome replication is in Visia faba, HeLa cells, Pisum sativum, mouse liver cells. Of course, the Taylor demonstrate the semi-conservative method of replication is Visia faba. That is one of the bean species, broad bean species, that is belongs to Fabaceae. They have used their root tip cells, of course, to study the mitosis. At that time, we use root tips. Same thing here. Taylor used the root tips of Fascia faba plant. Under that, he observed some mitotic dividing cells, and there he demonstrated semi-conservative chromosome replication. Of course, there also the thing that is he used particularly the radioactive thymidine as a nucleotide. For thymidine, he what do you call treat with radioactive material, that is radioactive isotope. Thymidine is as used, where half of the chromosome form will be normal and half of the chromosome form will contain thymidine, by which he explained semi-conservative chromosome replication in Vicia faba. Of course, that experimentation is not detailed in the syllabus, so just Taylor experiment has been mentioned is enough. So HeLa cells, one of the cancer cells found in the one of the African women who died due to this cancer, as its name behind that patient name called the Henrietta Lacks. So Henrietta, Lacks, Lacks, that is HeLa cells. From that patient name, this cells has been taken and extensively studied in cancer studies. Pisum sativum pea plant for Mendel experiment, mostly liver cells that may use for various experimentations. Okay, the next question. During the DNA replication, the sequence specification of base in the newly synthesized strand is determined by. So during DNA replication, the sequence specification of base in the newly synthesized strand is determined by template strand, DNA polymerase 1, restriction endonucleases, DNA polymerase 2. So during DNA replication, the sequence specification of base in newly synthesized strand is determined by the whatever the template strands are present. Two strand, opposite to that, the newly strand will be determined. The DNA polymerase 1, DNA polymerase 2, there are all the enzymes involved in formation of new strand of DNA, but not determining the basis of the sequence. Restriction endonucleases is one more enzyme used to cut the DNA, but not here. So DNA replication is, that we already know, it's semi-conservative first of all. Where it is continuous, discontinuous, such things has been given here. So DNA replication is the semi-conservative and it is discontinuous, because when you observe DNA replication, it continues only in one of the strand, in another strand it is discontinuous, what you call lagging strand, and the discontinuous fragment of DNA we call Okazaki fragments. Later on, these fragments will be joined. So that's why it is called semi-conservative and discontinuous. So Okazaki fragments are seen during, again, the same question has been given, gene expression, DNA replication, somatic mutation, somatic hybridization. So Okazaki fragments are obtained during DNA replication. Is one of the mechanism. For gene expression, we can study in Lac-Operon concept. Somatic mutation, somatic hybrid, just some terms has been given. If the mutation takes place in somatic cell, it is called somatic mutation. Somatic hybridization, two different cells when they fuse, or protoplast of two different cells has been fused together, at that time it is called somatic hybridization. Like tomato and potato will obtain tomato. Okay, so I'll stop to this question for this class. I'll continue same molecular basis of inheritance for the next class with remaining topics, including the Lac-Operon concept, followed by genetic codes, then followed by the DNA fingerprinting and the human genome project. So thank you. Continue next class.